Everybody, time for today's Daily Distinction. Glad you're here. We're going to go live on Instagram as well right now. Hope everybody's doing great. It's the weekend, although it could be Thursday for all I know, right? It's one of those crazy things that the days are running together and everything seems to be about the same. So how's everybody doing today? Glad you are watching. Got, I think, a really interesting story, and it relates to what's going on in the world right now with the pandemic. But it's really kind of interesting in the sense that it teaches a lesson that maybe all of us, regardless of how we feel about the situation, hi Ardell, that we all ought to be taking a look at right now. So that's going to be the topic for today's Daily Distinction. And got a couple other things I want you to know about as well, and that is I'll have this for you tomorrow, but we are creating a fan page on Facebook. It's going to be a page on Facebook where when we're not on the live program that we can share with each other and talk. So we're going to build a fan page on Facebook. I'll have all the information for you about that tomorrow so that we can kind of continue the conversation outside of this. Perhaps if you are watching this on the replay, and the vast majority of folks that do watch this do watch on the replay. So thank you very much for that. And that way that if you're not with us live and can't leave a comment live, that you can jump on the Facebook fan page and do that. That's Daily Distinction will be the fan page coming up. Not all set up yet, but I'll have all the info on that for you tomorrow. Also, wanted to make certain that I reminded you, if you haven't signed up, go to Distinction Nation. That's distinctionnation.com to sign up. We've got free resources there. There's a free 14-day audio program. Why not go through that? Use your time over these next couple weeks until things really start reopening, hopefully, and things start moving along. So go there and take a look. DistinctionNation.com. Sign up. There's a free 14-day audio program. There's a free ebook. There's free resources. It's all there for you at DistinctionNation.com. And I want to make certain, too, that I say hello and thank you to where's that wild hares to get up there? I want to make sure I say hello and thank you to Ken Walls, because my buddy Ken, who we have the show every Sunday night called Ken and Glenn, and a guy named Scott, and Ken has provided me with so much great information on all the stuff that comes to streaming and everything like that is so good and so incredible. So check out Ken Walls. If you haven't looked at his website yet, and if you haven't looked at his information yet, it's great. Ken does a live stream as well here that is really, really, really terrific. We've got a lot of folks watching on Instagram as well, and you've heard me say this before, but if you're watching on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, because it is the landscape version, I can't use that same thing on Instagram, which is the portrait version. So hello to my friend Ardell Mitchell back in my home. And he's wanting to know why we don't see my sister on more of these. And that is because, Ardell, I cannot control what she would say, nor have I ever been able to. Hi to Faye as well. Glad you were here. So thanks for everybody that's watching right now and connecting. I'm not getting any comments right now, so I don't know if you're not commenting or if for some reason the comments aren't going through as they should. I would feature your comments if I saw them here. So if you got a comment, somebody leave a comment just to make sure I'm getting them. Okay, please. Thanks. Interesting article in today's New York Times. Interesting article that I thought was interesting for a couple of reasons. One is because it talks about what we need to be thinking about and looking forward to in terms of how are we going to get through this, and what are the drugs going to be that will make it possible? Hey, I just went on Facebook and I'm seeing a bunch of comments from folks on Facebook here, 13 comments, and I didn't get any popping up here on my screen like I normally do. I don't know why that's the case, but hi, Talene, Jeff, good to see you. Charles, as always. Oh, Charles says, thank you for introducing Ken and Glenn to all of us. You're very welcome. Hey, Jerry, the shirt's still black, so that's all that counts, right? So, all right. So let me get back to the story. And I'm sorry for I don't know why it's not coming through in the comments here like it normally does, so I can pop your comments up, but it isn't. So don't know what's going on there, but we'll figure it out. That's another thing Ken Walls will help me out with. Okay, so today's New York Times had a really, really interesting article. And part of the reason that I found the article so interesting is because there's a personal connection to it. You may have seen my great friend Joe Calloway when he was the guest here on Daily Distinction a couple weeks ago. And Joe is just one of the most insightful and great guys that I know. And Joe was talking about a bunch of things in terms of how we deal with the pandemic and what we do and all of that. But Joe also mentioned, the importance of listening to experts. And Joe mentioned a friend of his at Vanderbilt University, which is in Nashville, where Joe lives, who is a researcher on this, has spent his life researching coronaviruses. Well, lo and behold, Joe's friend, they go to church together. They're good friends for a long time. Lo and behold, in this article in today's New York Times, the center point of the article is Joe's friend. His name is Dr. Mark Dennison. He's from Vanderbilt University. And it's amazing when you think about how these researchers, what they contribute, because he has spent his life researching respiratory viruses and spent his life researching the spread of virus. And man, you have something like this happen of what we're going through now. And just thank goodness there are people like that are fascinated by that and want to spend their lives doing that. So the article in today's New York Times talks about, and I don't know if I'll get the pronunciation right, but it is remdesivir. Remdesivir. It is an antiviral drug, and it was created to treat hepatitis and common respiratory viruses, but it didn't really have what they call the efficacy, the strength, the ability, the right combination to work on that, as well as some of the other drugs that are out there. So here's Dr. Dennison, Joe's friend, and he researches this and he remembers this drug. Now, he started studying coronaviruses 25 years ago. He's been studying this for a quarter of a century. And few scientists really cared about this, but it was, it was his work. He wanted to know more about coronaviruses and why did they work? It wasn't necessarily that he was looking about therapy, take this pill and this will make you better. He was interested from a biological perspective. How do viruses create this havoc in our bodies that they do? The article says, quote, neither he nor the scores of other scientists interested in coronaviruses foresaw a new one that would unleash a plague that has killed nearly 250,000 people worldwide. But what he found out was that this particular drug that everybody had forgotten about, kind of remdesivir, would get you better and get you better quicker. Now, it's not like it's an instant cure because where it takes, a little over 2 weeks to get better, this gets you better in 10 or 11 days. But it gets you, for many patients, it got them through it and they didn't get as severe and all of that. So what has happened is the FDA has now issued an emergency approval for that as a treatment for severely ill patients with COVID-19. What does this have to do with us? Well, it strikes me that what can happen is that in the rush of things and always looking for the next thing and always looking for the better thing, that we can put some things on the shelf and forget about things that might be really good for us in a different situation at a different time. Here is a drug that was invented years ago, and it was supposed to treat something else, and it didn't, work, but it didn't work as well as some of the other things, so it kind of got put on the shelf. Now they found a new use for it, something that was forgotten. And the new use was found by people who are not compensated by the pharmaceutical company Gilead Sciences that make it. My point is this: how many things do we have in our lives that, as we're moving on to the next thing, or getting on, or trying something different, or moving on to something else, how many things do we have in our lives that maybe we ought to go back and pull off the shelf and reconsider and think about, is this something that we could use for the future? Hey, it might be an old idea, it might be an old plan that really didn't work as well then, but maybe with some tweaking could work as well now. Maybe there's a goal in your life, whether it was a personal goal in terms of health or fitness, or something you'd like to do, learn a second language, whatever it might be, that you put on the shelf, but now's a good time to pull it back out and see if it works with the you of today. Just like that drug didn't work in another situation, but is working in when placed at the right place at the right time. Maybe there's something that you've had thought about in the past that you put on the shelf. Whatever it might be. I'm not saying you have to do it, because there was a lot of drugs out there that they considered. They found the right one. Consider several things, and maybe you'll find a specific thing that really works for your business or works for you at this particular time. You know, one of the things that has been really hard for me to accept in this particular time, pull out my phone here. One of the things that has been really difficult for me to accept at this particular time is there's no excuses for anything anymore. So, for example, I downloaded this onto my phone. It is How to Learn Spanish. I've always thought, a lot of times I speak, had done speeches at Cancun, or, someplace in Mexico, Manzanillo, or wherever, Cabo. And I always thought, gosh, it'd be so great to speak Spanish. And particularly now, living in the Southwest as I do, it would be great to know that. Yeah, it's one of those things I put on the shelf, right? Well, I kind of pulled it off the shelf. I'm doing every day about a little 30-minute little Spanish test and going through that. So there are things that you have put on the shelf in your life. Maybe now's the time to take it off the shelf, look at it in a new situation, see if it works for you. Hey, let's take a second. I got to go over here to Facebook because Sherry, I see that your comment came through. Sherry is saying a beautiful sunny day back home in Indiana. Tammy still has her house in Fort Wayne, and we have the security cameras all over that, so we get a chance to look and see what the weather is back home as well. So I know it's nice in Fort Wayne, and already testing out my Spanish here. Buenísimo, wonderful, that is great. Hey, Glenn Morshower is on with us here, and Glenn's saying, get ready to do back-to-back talks. Want to send you some goodness, brother. See you tomorrow night. Yes, I talked about that earlier, Glenn, is that we will be here tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific with the Ken and Glenn show with a guy named Scott. So make certain that you take a look at that. We would love to have you on there with us tomorrow night. Jeff, yeah, Polly, good to see you as well. Great. See, Glenn, you're showing off, man. You're showing me your Spanish. See. I am at the entry level here, man. I'm telling you, uno, dos, tres. That's about as far as I've gotten here in my first couple of lessons. But I think it's interesting. Bruce, I've got some VCRs on the shelf. Maybe go back and watch some old videos not available on Netflix. What a cool thing! It is so funny. Tammy's my wife's mom and dad used to own a video store in Fort Wayne, and nobody has more VHS videos than they do. And it's kind of like, gosh, we don't want to throw them out, because there's good movies, but yet we're not really. And so one of the things I know that they've been doing back in Fort Wayne is to pull off some great videos and re-enjoy some of the videos some of the movies that they haven't seen for a long time. So not a bad idea. Glenn says it means, of course. There you go. Of course. By the way, I told Glenn this. We have been, because of our friendship with Glenn, who plays Agent Aaron Pierce on 24. You may have heard me say before that other than Kiefer Sutherland, nobody appeared in more seasons, and other folks in more episodes, but nobody appeared in more seasons than Glenn did of 24, other than Kiefer Sutherland. And so we have been binging on 24 because I saw them all, but obviously it's been a while. Tammy saw most, but hadn't seen them all. And we ended up at the halfway point of day 3, season 3. And we are, man, what what a fantastic show. And I mean, there are very few shows that you can say, boy, that's a seminal event. It changed television. You know, the way I Love Lucy changed comedy, right? Because it wasn't a variety show in front of a live audience. It was what they call the 3-camera shoot and filmed in a studio. It changed it. Seinfeld changed. Breaking Bad changed much of television. Lonesome Dove. 24 is one you got to put in there. I mean, it really, really changed television. And I saw an article, what was it, Variety? I think it was. They said that Fox wants to bring back 24. They're trying to find the right concept where they could bring Jack Bauer back for another day. Hope that happens, man. That would be so cool. Talene asked, did you not take Spanish with Mrs. Trissler? Well, Talene, when it was so funny at Crothersville, my home school, you've heard me talk about, the woman who taught English, or the woman who taught French and Spanish, and she taught both of those languages, and her name was Miss English at that time. So Miss English taught French and Spanish at Crothersville, and she became Mrs. Trissler. I took French. Talene, I thought that was, you know, my grandparents on my mom's side, the name Garriott is French ancestry. And so I thought it'd be kind of cool to take French. Oui, oui. It's just about but it was really cool. It was so cool because I had a chance to go to Paris, and it wasn't that I could speak the language, but it was that I could pick up a word, or I could look at a sign and kind of, know enough that I could make out what the sign was. Yeah, Glenn, that's a great one. NYPD Blue changed TV with a handheld camera concept, just the movement there. And, Glenn, it not only changed network programming, but it even changed, because I was working in TV news at the time, and it changed how the consultants told the camera professionals to shoot news stories at the time, to get off the tripod, to move. So one of the fascinating things about that program to me as well is that it changed. You're exactly right. It changed television, not just episodic television, but it changed television news as well. Pam says, "Parlez-vous français un peu?" Which means a little, by the way. So that's the scoop there. So that's what I want to talk to you about on this Saturday, is just a quick cut in to say hi, and I'll see you again tomorrow. We'll have all the information about the new fan page where we can continue to share ideas on the program, or on what we're talking about with each other, even during the time that this isn't running live. That'll be coming up. I'll have that for you tomorrow when I'm here again at 3:00 Eastern, noon Pacific is when Daily Distinction is on. But then the special thing is, tomorrow night, the Ken and Glenn show with a guy named Scott is on at 8:00 Eastern, 5:00 Pacific. Just pull up your smartphone and set yourself a reminder to make certain that you are here. Glenn says they were the first to show butts as well. Yes, they were. And I could have gone longer without seeing Sipkowitz's butt. That's that is certainly true. Hey, cheers, Charles. It's always great seeing you. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you being here. Sorry that the comments weren't popping up. Oh, wait a minute. Here's Brad Cleveland. Hey, good to see you, Brad. Brad is a really, really terrific person who is really the pioneer in leading the charge for great customer experiences that are delivered by call centers. And Brad was one of the founders of ICMI, which is the industry standard for how work is done at call centers. And Brad's a client and a good friend, and so it's great to see you. Glad you're here, Brad. We're here every day at noon Pacific, so look forward to checking in with you again soon. Debbie Murphy just posted. Good grief, I meant to mention this, Debbie. As somebody that grew up, to have the first Saturday in May go by without the Kentucky Derby is just crazy. I had the great privilege of working for a while at WHAS in Louisville, which was kind of like the Derby station. It was just fantastic. We were the Derby station in Louisville at the time. My friend Jim Mitchell was the lead anchor back at that time at WHAS, and Jim and I have stayed connected here through Facebook. He's now in Tucson. He went to the University of Arizona and became a professor in the law school there at the U of A. I had the greatest job on the planet on Derby days. Got to tell you this quick story. So I was doing work at WHAS, and man, the Derby wall to wall, Kentucky Derby wall to wall, and the whole day was spent. They would show every race of all the races that led up to the Derby. They would have all the people they do all the things of the people at Churchill Downs with the crazy hats and and what they were doing, and they had somebody. There was a tier there of the seats at Churchill Downs that they call Millionaires Row, and so Michael Jordan would be there, and Tom Cruise. I mean, just the most famous movie stars and sports figures in the world were there. But one of the cool things about Derby Day in the part of the world I grew up is that you would have these crazy, huge Derby parties of people that weren't going to fight the traffic and go in the crowds and go to the track, but yet they wanted to celebrate the Derby. It just became this big day of celebration. So they gave me a live truck, which at that time you had to have a whole truck, right, to do the satellite and all that. So I would go out and basically crash Derby parties. But it got to be that people wanted me to stop. But we'd be driving down the streets and there'd be people with signs up, Scott, stop here, Scott, stop here. And we would crash these Derby parties and talk to people. Well, the funny thing was, earlier in the day, it was really cool. Earlier in the day, as the day was getting started and the parties were getting started, we have normal conversations with people. As the day went on and the people at the Derby parties got drunker, these segments got a lot more interesting. First of all, I'm praying that nobody drops profanity while I'm talking to these people that are snockered on live television. And secondly, part of what made it so cool was we went everywhere from the ritziest part of Louisville, which is Old Money South. It is very elite. I mean, there were people at some of these parties that owned the horse farms that wouldn't go to the earlier races, but they would helicopter in to see the Derby. So I went to these incredibly elite parties, very stuffy, and then we get back out on the road and go to another part of town, Shively or elsewhere. And boy, these are good old boys drinking beer, watching the race. And we stopped at one. Michelle Vino is the name of my producer who watches occasionally here. And we stopped at one. It was Michelle and Sherry, my late wife, and me. And they were doing races in their backyard. They had it marked off, little squares in a circle, right? So in numbers. And you would get on a hobby horse. They had a helmet and you put on a silk jacket and you got on a hobby horse. And then they'd roll dice and you would go forward that many squares, right? So if you rolled a 1, you just move forward 1. And so we televised a horse race with dice on hobby horses with us on it. So it's just such a great day, and it's a great day of celebration. And Debbie, I was wondering, are they still having Derby parties, even though there's no Derby this year? Would be kind of an interesting thing to say. Yeah, Mark, I was a party crasher. That was, and I got paid to crash parties. What a job, what a great thing. Yeah, Pam and I, when I went to Indianapolis and worked at Wish TV there, I got to do the mini marathon. And one of the coolest things I got to do at Wish TV, in addition to the movie junkets, was we did the same thing during the Indy 500, except I got to be in the Indy 500, not as a driver. I got to be inside the track for the coverage of the Indy 500. And the very first Brickyard, which was enormous, it was the first race held at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway by NASCAR. And man, it was huge. It was enormous. It's declined since then. But man, it was, and I was on the track when they started the engines. It was interviewing drivers. It was just such a great experience. Mark, we should have put that on the podcast. I didn't even think about that. Debbie, summer having parties. That's really cool. I'm glad to hear that. That's really neat. So thank you for that. I'm missing it, man. I tell you, that was some of the most fun I ever had a chance to have when we were doing that. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for your time. I am so grateful that you were here. I'll be back here with more stories, more info, more ideas to share with you tomorrow. It's Jay Bear just joined us on Instagram. My great pal, Jay. Good to see you, man. I'll see you back here same time tomorrow. Don't forget the Ken and Glenn show with a guy named Scott at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific tomorrow. And I look forward to catching up with you then, and we will talk more. And also, I'll have all the info for you on the new Facebook fan page coming up for you tomorrow. Look forward to seeing you then. Thanks for watching.